Have you ever felt like whatever you do, your sight reading just doesn't get better? Like, this is something that I ran into at one point, and I realized that what I was doing when I was reading music is I was reading fingerings. So I would look at a note on the staff and I would associate a fingering with that note. So when I ran into a passage that was just like a bunch of notes, I was having to process just like a bunch of fingerings. And it makes sense why that would be difficult. So if reading fingerings like overloads your brain, what's the alternative? Well, the alternative turns out is read notes. So you look at the note on the page and, okay, this is a D. And then, so you're reading the D, then all you have to do is play a D. And here's the cool thing, for most of us, especially those who've been playing our instruments for a while, you don't have to think about playing a D too much. Like if I told you just play a D, you would just play it. You wouldn't have to really think about the fingering. It would just be pretty automatic. So essentially what that means is when you run into that passage that has a bunch of notes one after another, now all you have to think is notes. So D, A, C, G. Because you already know how to play those notes, you're not having to think about all those cross fingerings and all those things that your fingers are having to do going between all these different fingerings. And as someone who plays bassoon, those fingerings they get pretty complicated. So, but yeah, why does this happen? I think a lot of people, when they first start reading, this is what they do naturally. This is what I did naturally. Maybe I didn't know my note names well enough when I first started out. And so when I would read, I would just look at the note and associate where it was on the staff with a fingering. So again, I wasn't reading notes, I was reading fingerings. So how do you change this? Well, for me, how I did it's kind of a funny process. I just took a piece of music, and here's the thing. I knew what the note names were for the different notes. The issue was that my brain was just pulling up fingerings, not notes. So what I needed to do is reorganize that process. I needed to make it so when I look at a note, immediately a note name is popping into my head, or note information, basically. So I just started taking etude books, or any music would work fine. And without my instrument, I would just, note by note, name the note out loud. And I would just sit there for, a good period of time, like 20 minutes at a time, something like that, just reading through etudes, just saying the note, not even trying to sing the pitch or anything like that, just saying the note name. And I started doing this, saying this out loud, then eventually I would just say it in my head. And then eventually I would just do it without even saying anything. It was just like, once you do that enough, you just look at it and you kind of have the strong association. I know what that note is. And again, it wasn't like I didn't know what the notes were. This is coming from someone who is a fairly advanced player. It's just like, again, the process in my brain was look at notation, associate fingering, right? Instead of look at notation and then associate that with a note and then just play that note. So you kind of have to implement this, especially if you see yourself in this. If you see oh yeah, I'm totally associating a fingering rather than a note. Well, going back through this process, you're kind of starting over a little bit. But again, it's like you do this without the instrument in your hand at first. And then eventually you add the instrument in. And now that you have the instrument, you're actually just going to do the same thing. You're going to be just, as you're reading, you're just essentially identifying notes. And then, but instead of just saying it, you'll just play it too. And again, for most of us, playing a note is pretty easy. When I say play a G, you know what to do, right? Okay, that's it. Yeah, if you're going to try this out, just be patient, because takes a little time. Another thing, obviously, if you're a teacher too, you can think about this when you're introducing your students to notes at the very beginning. Make sure that they really know the note names and they're not just associating the notation with fingerings. It'll help them out a lot in the long run.